Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Overreaction Tuesday time. Lynnell Willingham is with us. And Lynnell, we sit you on your couch. That way you're nice and relaxed because we got to have something to balance the fire of takes. We do this every Tuesday after a game. This one, an overtime loss. So coming out, actually, I was in a weird spot coming out of this game because, the game-winning field goal goes in, and I'm like, okay, they played fine. I'm generally all right.
Yeah.
I'm cool with this. How did you feel in kind of the immediate aftermath of the game?
It was just like, darn, I wish Reed Blankenship's arm wasn't in the way of Terry McLaurin's foot, like that. It really bothered me. It's one of those things where, on the pregame show, I predicted the team to win. I really was confident in their ability to come out and respond based on how bad they played last week. So, the fact that they were in it at the end wasn't a total surprise to me. I was just ultimately disappointed in the plays that they didn't make. I think we use the cliche all the time, it's a game of inches. None more true than on Sunday against Philadelphia, man. It was like 6 or 7 plays where it's like, if the defender's hand is that much bigger, he gets the deflection, or if you get there a tick sooner, you get a sack. So it was tough, though.
Tough. That's the league. That's the league for sure. And when you're in a close, that's kind of the funny thing about the game on Sunday. It is a couple plays here or there. That's the nature of a close game. That's the nature of being competitive, but the better teams make the plays. And that's why the Eagles are the Eagles and the Commanders are the Commanders so far. And that goes everything from making plays to referees seeing, Terry's foot out when I think a lot of us thought that was in, to coaching decisions, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well. All right, let's get into the takes. So if you're new listening or watching this, Lynnell, notorious for his flaming hot takes. He brings them to our show, notorious for really not having flaming hot takes. And I judge whether or not his takes are overreaction. So what's your first take off this game?
My first take is I want to go to the offensive side of the football, and I'm going to start with the offensive line. I've kind of already had this reaction, but I will give it again. I think all the overreaction we had during the summer about this group, I think each of the first 4 weeks they've come out and shown that they're a lot better than what we give them credit for. I'm willing to go out and say I think they're playing right now like a top half of the league unit, and they're not the reason that Washington is losing games or is 2-2 at the moment. I think they're more of a strength than a weakness right now.
Ooh, the wording there. Yeah, no, I think that's not an overreaction. I would say their top half is a little strong, but they're they could be if they're 14th best in the league. I don't watch enough O-line play.
I'll give them between 16 and 19 or
I don't have an O-line rankings handy at all times. I don't have time to do that, to watch every O-line in the league, and I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm looking at, but I can look at the stats of time to throw and yards before contact, and there's statistical stuff that can be indicators of how well an offensive line unit is playing. And generally speaking, they're playing fine. They're not playing great by any stretch. I think that they were good in this game. And, one of the things that's important, we actually talked about this morning on Take Command, something I wind up saying a lot in this segment based off when we do it after talking to Logan on Tuesdays. But it's not just okay, you gave up 5 sacks. That means you played poorly. If there's 77 plays, how did you play on the other 72?
Right.
Because there's a way to play pretty poorly over this course of 77 plays and give up no sacks, but you're giving up constant pressure. There's no holes for running backs. You're just playing crappy ball for consistently 77 snaps, or you play pretty well for 65, okay for 7, and then you give up 5 sacks, and that's actually a better performance because for 65 of 77 plays, you played really well. And I think that's what this team does is more often than not, they're pretty good. They're giving Sam good pockets. They're not giving up a ton of pressure. It's just when they're bad, it's really bad. And against Arizona, one of those is devastatingly bad. They win the game, but the sack fumble, that's really bad. Against Buffalo, really, really bad. A lot of those pressures lead to the bad Sam stuff. Sam obviously doesn't help them out a lot. But I think down in and down out, this unit's doing a pretty good job. Again, nothing spectacular. They're not giving Sam outrageous time to throw. They're not just gashing people in the run game, but they're playing all right. And I do think that when you talk about why they're 2-2 and the 2 on the bad side, it's hard to pin it on the O-line.
I don't think you can pin it on them at all, man. I'm gonna piggyback off what you said. I think EB in the play calling last week, I think helped, and that kind of gets into my next overreaction, Craig. The offense is back, right? If they found their identity, they found their bread and butter. They just need to mimic Sunday's game plan for the next 15 weeks or for the next 14 weeks, so to speak, right? I was thrilled with what they did offensively. It was damn near perfect to me, coming out with 2 back-to-back touchdown drives. I think EB did a really nice job accentuating the strengths of the offense and Sam Howell, constantly putting them in position to have success. And the one thing that we talked about that I was really proud with is the patience with the running game. Anytime you commit to the running game, Craig, you know this, you got to be okay with a 0-yard gain. You got to be okay with a -1 play, because eventually those 10-yard pops will start to come. And after Sunday, Brian Robinson, second in the NFL in first down runs, so he got his groove back a little bit as well. But I think the offense is humming, and they look like, when it clicks, Craig, and this may be the overreaction of all of this, when they've got it all figured out on offense, I think they're a top 10 unit. Like, they have legit balance. They have the quick passing game. They can push it down the field when they need to. And the offensive line has allowed them to do some of the things that we questioned.
Yeah. So the offense has given up. I'm trying to see scoring offense. Let's see in general. No, just give me points per game. Why did I try to get fancy with looking up stuff? Just give me team stats. Give me offense. Give me points per game. I don't
The
know.
eye
I'll
test,
get it in a second.
look, you may not even need the numbers, because you watch the game over the eye test. They definitely passed it for the majority of the 4 quarters on Sunday, or I guess 5 quarters since we got some OT.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think that they are. Like, you're right. Like, I think when they're rolling offensively, like, they are one of the best in the sport because of the skill position guys they have, because how they move the ball around. All right, here we go. Points per game. They're kind of middle in the pack. They're 22-3 a game, but obviously, like, take out the Buffalo loss, and like,
Yeah,
what would it look like if you took out every team's worst performance? They might have the biggest jump, because
yeah.
3 really drags you down. But the other thing I just was looking up, Lynnell, is like, how many times, this is why I love StatMuse, because you can literally type in a question and it'll give you the answer. How many times have the Washington Commanders scored 30 points since 2020? So since Ron took over, the answer is 6. And 2 of them have happened
Right.
in the first 4 games this season with Eric Bieniemy. So that tells you just how dynamic this offense can be and how productive. Like, they're good in the red zone. They can
Yeah.
create explosive plays. Like, they score points, which is the whole point of offense. And I think it's really exciting. Can they hold up? Can they do it against every opponent? Like, what was it about what Buffalo did that other teams are going to be able to repeat? That's a good test. Like, or is it unique to Buffalo? Like, Miami scored 70 on Denver and they scored 20 on Buffalo. So it tells you that that unit is real good for the Bills. They might, they're kind of pushing the 49ers for the best team in football right now. And so I look at that more as an outlier. And generally speaking, I think this team is going to continue to put up points, put up yards. And I agree with you there. And they should get better, because they've got a
Yes.
quarterback who has no mental bank of anything. Like, he has no experience, and all he's doing is stacking experience after experience. But I agree with you. I also loved the game plan. I loved how they moved the pocket. I loved how they were able to get Curtis touches in space, Terry touches in space, get different guys involved. Big spot. Logan Thomas comes up with a big catch to get them down in the red zone. And the thing is, too, like, the efficiency of the offense leads to a lot of this success, because how do you get 10 targets for Terry, 9 for Curtis, and 8 for Jahan? By running 77 plays, which
Right.
means you're converting on third down, where they were 8 of 17, which, like, isn't great percentage wise necessarily, but they had 17 third downs. Like, there's
Look how
teams in
long
the
they held
NFL
the
that scored, or that's like a third of their play total for the entire game. Like, they have 44 plays, I think, in Carolina, I think, ran like that number or something like that this weekend. So it just shows you, man, like, the EB effect. Yeah, back. I don't know what back means. Back means consistently, and we're still so early in the season, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're capable each and every week. Like, if I'm the Bears and I'm all these other defensive coordinators on the schedule, I'm like, oh crap, playing Washington's gonna suck.
The consistency is going to be the big thing for me. Is does Bieniemy have the discipline to stay balanced? Because there was a point in that first half where, like, you're only averaging 2.9 yards a pop on the ground, but you only have 4 more pass attempts than you do rush attempts, and I think that balance really helped them out. The quick game, like, they look their best when they're in the quick game, and that kind of supplements some of these runs. because a quick game hitch that gets you 4 yards is like a run that puts you in 2nd and 6. So as long as they can end up in those 3rd and manageables, you'll see the 3rd down percentage continue to go up.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. Some of their sacks set them up with some really bad 3rd downs, and they didn't convert them because what do you do on 3rd and 22? You lose all the time. It's Overreaction Tuesday. Lynnell's with us here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. We're always live as well, of course, on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Lynnell gives us a take. We determine whether or not it's an overreaction. So far, I agree with the two that you've given me. Let's see if we find one that we think is just blown out of proportion. Oh, you setting it up? Here we go.
Everyone in our market and everyone nationally is taking crazy pills for thinking that Washington should have went for 2 at the end of that football game. And here's my explanation, Craig. There's obviously going to be a counter to it, but let me tell you what I think as you cover the half of your face. Anytime
I cover my whole face.
Anytime you have to motion Logan Thomas under center in 2 short yardage situations, you clearly don't have confidence in your short yardage offense. Now, I understand they scored 2 of their touchdowns in these short yardage situations, but I'm okay with going to overtime and seeing what happens. I understand the other side of the argument. You're not going to have a better opportunity to upset a team that you all think is better than Washington. I never thought there was this seismic gap between the two. I thought if they went to overtime, they should have won in overtime, but everyone's logic is like, oh, when the team is clearly better, you just take your shot at trying to get 2 yards. It just so happens to be that 2 yards is really hard to come by for this offense at times. And I think them doing this gadget stuff, putting Logan under center, tells you, just how confident they are in the group's ability to convert in those spots.
Yeah, that play is going to need to take a break. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other plays that you could use. Like, that's a good concept. The problem is like once a team is ready for it, it's harder to stop. And like QB sneaks are not as easy as the Eagles make them look, because they have a uniquely talented offensive line and a uniquely talented quarterback. I mean, even on the play where Jalen roll, like the tush push rollout, he smashes. I think it might be Cam, it might be Forrest. Yeah. Like he runs into that dude and falls forward because Jalen Hurts squat 600 pounds and his legs are super powerful. And that's just not the case. I mean, how about, by the way, on the Logan Thomas one that's successful, Sam Howell with the push, love to see that, but also kind of hate to see that. Here's why you're wrong. Like straight up wrong. Like overreaction. I don't know. Just bad take. There is a lingering effect of playing in overtime in the NFL. They play again on Thursday. That game needed to end right there. And you cannot, and this is a really good point that Grant Paulson made on his show that he got when he was texting with one of his buddies. So shout out to Grant Paulson's buddy on this for bringing this up. But it's 100% correct. You have to end that game right there because you need to get your team off the field, win or lose, and make sure you don't have a lingering effect on Thursday. Even if you take that out, though, you're on the road. It's a 50-50 shot in terms of conversion percentages in the NFL.
Is it though?
Like that's the data. They fluctuate. Yeah, for 2-point conversions, they fluctuate between about 44 and like 52% based off whatever season you're looking at. So it's a 50-50 proposition. And, you're already a 50-50 proposition in overtime with just the coin toss alone. And then like scoring a touchdown is like a 25% chance on any given drive in the NFL.
The numbers.
So I looked all this up yesterday because, we were talking about it and our boss CK was yelling about it. And I was like, let me look up the data. So it's just like, and obviously like, that means it's 25% for them too, that they're going to go down and score a touchdown on their first drive. So like, is there other times that you play for overtime? Yes. On the road when you have to play on a Thursday night? No. And the more I think, at first my inclination was to like give Ron a lot of credit for being like, hey, my team is gassed, but that means they're gassed too. And like just smash Brian Robinson's face in there and live with the results. Like that to me is what I would have done. Or like throw a fade to Terry. I know everyone hates the fade and it's like, you're going back to your Jay Gruden days. Right. But like if the ball's in the air and Terry McLaurin's got a chance to win the game with it, I'm cool with that as long as that's a route that you feel comfortable with Sam throwing well. So like there's stuff there that you can do. Spread everybody out the way Sam runs, like run a QB draw. Like I'm okay with a billion different things in terms of trying. I'm not okay with extending that game the more I think about it. I don't think it's an indefensible position. So I'm not going to overreact myself. It's not indefensible,
Okay.
but I do think it's definitively wrong.
And I think, like, after hearing the data on it, okay, like, it kind of gets me to walk back over to the other side. I'll be offensive coordinator, Lynnell, for a second. I love
Mhm.
the look that they got on their first touchdown with Curtis. If you remember going back to the Super Bowl, like, that's what Philadelphia kind of struggled with, checking that Eric Bieniemy offense is the short motion stuff. So, or the motion stuff across the formation. So that would have been probably what I went back to. I think that was sort of like a sweep option look where Sam could have kept it, but he didn't because the linebackers never moved. So
Yeah.
I may have gone back to that. But yeah, I do have a concern about their short yardage stuff because it feels
That I
like
think
it
is
isn't.
fair.
Yeah, it's not just this year. This is going back to last year too. They struggled in those situations at times until Brian Robinson. You just say, "Here, be a battering ram and go try to get me to." But that'll be something I monitor moving forward because I'm not all too confident in them in that situation.
Yeah, and look, like is it hard? Like the idea of they're just gonna run some version of like halfback dive, duo,
Yeah.
inside zone, like whatever version of inside run you want. Like running that against Fletcher Cox and Jalen Carter is not, and Jordan Davis is probably not a great time. And Fletcher Cox kind of ate Sam Cosmi's lunch
Oh,
all day.
he mauled Sam.
So like I'm not super, and like this is part of the O line stuff, right? If you have Brandon Sheriff, you go run behind Brandon Sheriff. For Trent Williams, you go run behind Trent Williams. You don't have that. You
I'm
don't
running
have a
behind
fullback.
Sadiq, man. If I was
Yeah,
gonna do it, I'd probably run it behind Sadiq and Leno.
probably. But like on its face, does that make you feel super confident?
Of
Probably
course not.
not. You stick John Bates over there as your best blocking tight end. Like there's stuff you can do. You also, can try to roll out and see if you get Jahan Curtis and Terry involved. Can Logan Thomas get involved? Like you just have so many options. It's 2 yards for the game. And I will go back to the Thursday night thing. And that's the kind of thing that you have to go into the game with that mentality. Like when Ron says, Sunday morning, we talk about all this stuff and I'm thinking about the game plan and thinking about situations like that in the moment in the game. Do I expect you to remember that? No. But that's why you do the prep beforehand and say, if we get in this moment down to what are we doing? Hey guys, we're going for it no matter what situationally, because we got to get off the field and get back to DC and start recovering for Thursday. And 10, 15, 20 extra snaps for our guys is going to really hurt them on Thursday. And there's data and studies on that too, that there's lingering effects from playing in overtime. And so avoiding overtime is, I don't say it's more important than the win, but it's almost as important of the win so that you don't cost yourself against the Bears. And so, yeah, I disagree with your take on that one.
To your credit though, Ron should 100% not forget those scenarios. What else is he doing during the game? He doesn't coach offense. He doesn't coach defense. He should be. Yeah.
Just sits there with his
Did you
arms
see the
crossed.
Fox graphic during the game, man? It was amazing when they did the animated graphic of him. Of course,
With his arms
they
crossed.
folded his arms. It was amazing. I said, "Look,
That's funny. Yeah, it does seem like he sits there with his arm crossed and he like is never talking into the headset. He's just observing. And like, look, is that a little bit of unfair theater criticism? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's Overreaction Tuesday. People, come on.
yeah,
What do you expect?
that's what we're here for. All right, I think we got time for one more. Maybe one more if you got one.
I'm pretty sure
I
you
mean,
know
you
where
have
I'm
endless
gonna.
takes. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, you know where I'm gonna go with this one. Officially color me concerned about two things: the consistent lack of pass rush and the explosive plays being given up by this defense. I haven't gone and looked at the chart after week 4, but going into the game, I believe Washington was in the top half of most explosive plays given up coming into the game. Now, the Buffalo game obviously has a lot to do with that. Denver, they came up a couple of explosives as well. Explosives are runs of more than 10 and passes of more than 20, right, Craig? If I'm
Everyone defines it differently. So
I think that's the chart that I was looking at. But yeah, like looking at the pressure numbers post game on Pro Football Focus, Chase Young had the most pressures. Um, Landon Dickinson put on a bleeping clinic against John Allen. Like he stopped his that hump move on multiple different occasions, and John didn't really seem like he had a counter for it. I just thought I texted Logan actually. I think before you guys were about to start doing the live post game show, I was like, man, I just don't think they're getting the return on investment to this point in the season from the defensive line. I know it's only 4 games. This is Overreaction Tuesday, so it's a perfect place to do it. It just looks different, right? Like we got 4 first rounders, but I want something that looks like Watt. I want something that looks like Garrett. I want something that looks like Bosa, Parsons. And I understand it's hard to ask that because those are freak caliber players or aliens, but like I just need them to be more impactful on a more consistent basis. Philly converted a couple of 3rd and longs in that football game, and it's like, where's the pass rush? And I'm never gonna try to accuse guys of loafing because like that's a tough place to be from a player's perspective. You want someone calling out your effort, but like it's times where it's like, dude, just keep pursuing the football and you'll make a play. And that's not just for the D line. I think that's for everybody on the field.
Yeah, I think I feel like I saw less of that in this game than I did the previous
Yeah,
one. I think we're talking much more in terms of efficacy instead of effort. But I
yeah,
also do wonder, like, are these guys playing too many snaps? Like, are they not able to even go all out because they're a little bit tired or they're not quite at
yeah.
their best explosiveness? Like, I don't mind seeing more James Smith Williams or Casey Toohill. Did Casey even like get on? He played 2
I
snaps.
remember a tackle that he had on one of the plays that he played, but yeah, it didn't
Or he had
feel
2
like he
pass
played a
rush
lot.
snaps, I should say. Let me pull up the actual
Yeah,
full defensive numbers. Casey Toohill played 5 snaps in the game. Like, James played 16
it's too
of
little for both.
71.
It's too little for both of them, and you see
Yeah.
it on the field where like you don't give your second effort sometimes. You don't try to counter maybe because you're too tired to try to counter. You know?
Or you just, like, I don't wanna say lazy bull rush, but, like, you just kind
Yeah.
of rush your lane as opposed to, like, trying something because you're
Mhm.
not like, you don't have it in you to hit that spin move with full
Right.
explosiveness or whatever. So, yeah, I think Michael Phillips has been on this, and I think he's right on that front, for sure, and I do think you need to see more impact. Like, yes, Bosa, like, those dudes, Garrett,
Aliens.
they're aliens, but, like, 99 is supposed to be an alien. And so he's been their best pass rusher in terms of win rate, in terms of percentage, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, some of that has probably come at the expense of John Allen and expense of the defense because he's a little too freelancy at times. But I think that was better against Philly. But at the end of the day, like, the explosives is the bigger deal
Yeah.
because Emmanuel Forbes in explosive plays directly gives up 14 points or 17 points. Like, end of the first half, he gets mossed by Devontae.
Crazy play.
Like, what are you gonna do?
The
But
only
like, I
criticism I would have is like to try to go to at the football with 2 hands instead of one, maybe.
Or can you get there like a half step earlier and knock the ball away? But
Right.
like, he's challenging at the catch point. He's right there. Devontae Smith makes an insane play.
Yeah.
So like, it's hard to get mad at that. And frankly, it's hard to get mad for, I've said this consistently and I'm not changing my mind. It's hard to get mad at him for the last touchdown because he's trying to make a play in a time where they need to make a play. And Philly does something totally off script and stupid and gets away with it, to the extent that they get away with it, because if Ron goes for 2 and they make it, or Commanders win in overtime, you
No
cost
shot.
yourself the
Yeah.
game. So, but at the end of the day, that is an explosive play. So is the other one. The other touchdown's an explosive. He gives up another one that doesn't result directly in points as in a touchdown, but like, you take those points off the board and like, there's not a 34-point performance. It's a 17-point performance. So it is the kind of thing that, it shows you how detrimental those are. It's why that's super critical, and they've got to clean it up. But and they do go together too. Like, if the pass rush can get home, then maybe
Right.
you don't get some of that stuff. But
If he gets hit
um,
as he's releasing the football,
yeah,
it's not an accurate of a throw.
like, at the end of the day, AJ Brown's incredible, Devontae Smith is incredible, and Jalen
Right.
Hurts was damn near, or was, the MVP last year. And then the week before was Josh Allen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, like, if you give up a bunch of that stuff against Chicago, who played better last week, but also against Denver, who's just terrible defensively, like, then we're having a different discussion. Atlanta, different discussion. But if you want to be, here's what I would say that's safe and in the zone of good takes. If you want to be who you say you want to be, you got to be better than this.
Yes. 110%. And I think that's on all 3 levels of the defense. Guys just failed to make plays. And that's kind of more my overarching theme. Like this, you invested a lot of resources on this side of the ball. Guys want to earn contracts. Go earn your contract. Go get paid. And then the one play that probably the play that bothered me the most on Sunday was the AJ Brown touchdown. It's very similar to the whole shot that Hurts threw to Brown when Cam comes over and makes the hit. Derek
Yep.
Forrest takes a way worse angle and it ends up in a touchdown. And like that stuff can't happen because you make that tackle and maybe it's only 3 you give up or a turnover.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the one on the fake bubble. It's different than the whole shot. Like, it's a similar throw,
Yeah.
but and Derek, like, I actually was hard on Forrest, and I kind of regret it after seeing the tape. He comes flying from the opposite hash, and it's just a tough angle. And it's like not because he did a bad job. It's just like it's a long way to run. And he's trying to tackle AJ Brown. Forbes bites up on the screen. He doesn't play the technique correctly. He doesn't read it correctly. He gambles and he gets beat. But then, yeah, the pursuit is bad. And if that's 3 instead of 7, it's different. And that's on, everyone at that point. So there's playing NFL defense is hard, man. But at the end of the day, if you want to be great at it, you got to make these plays. And that's kind of, I think, what we're both saying. All right. What's your schedule this week with our short week and the Bears and all that kind of stuff? Where can people hear you on the old radio box?
I don't even know at this point. Wednesday night overtime, 6:30 to 10. We got the in-game show Thursday night during the game, and then I got Friday night overtime as well. So it's like an extended post-game show Friday night. We'll preview Week 5 ahead, and then we'll recap Washington's game.
Nice. So now that the Nats are done, a little bit more of the overtime shift on the fan. I know how that goes. It's overtime season. And then, are you in with the Rooster at all this week?
I am not, because I have overtime.
Because you have overtime. That's good. I'm glad that CK is respecting the takes. You can't overexpose the takes.
Exactly. Can't overexpose.
All right. Lynnell Willingham, everybody. Overreaction Tuesday.
This is the Hoffman Show on the T980 and the Odyssey app.